Hey, unbelievable. Here we are again in the Performer TV studios. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Weed Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young.
And I'm Curt Dalton from Cannabis.net.
And I'm from Pro Cannabis Media. And we are going to have a big 2-hour live stream for you. We have some great guests, including the head of the Cannabis Division of Burns and Levinson. That is Frank Segall. A little bit later on, we're going to be talking with Tito Jackson in studio. And we got some really cool phone calls lined up. Curt, tell us about some of them.
But wait, Jimmy, there's more. Just like the infomercial says, we have great call-ins tonight. We start out with the guys from Vote Pro Pot, Jay Britton, Andrew McCready's, and Phil Adams from the Washington, D.C. area. We have our friends from Jamaica. We got to meet Liz Grow and her husband, Patrick Pope, who have a hit reality show on High Times TV called Grow House. And, of course, the last half hour at 9:30 tonight, we'll be talking to the one and only Bruce Linton, ex-CEO.
No, we won't.
You never know. Yeah, the running joke is he won't be on the phone, but hopefully we'll get him tonight. Talk Canopy growth, talk his new projects, talk all things cannabis.
And that is what we are going to do. We are going to be establishing our phone call with Frank Segall. Let me tell you a little bit about Burns and Levinson because they are one of the leaders in the legal representation of the cannabis industry. And on Wednesday, October 23rd, they have a State of the Cannabis Industry full-day forum at the, I love this, the Westin Waltham Boston Hotel.
Right.
Is that confusing to anybody?
And what town is that in? Where's my GPS go?
I think it's a Waltham location of the Boston Hotel, which, as we know, is about 15, 20 minutes outside of Boston.
Right on the other side of the Back Bay, Waltham. Got it. Gotcha.
They actually have a great lineup, including the chairman of the Cannabis Control Commission, Steve Hoffman. I believe Frank is going to be interviewing him one-on-one, something we both have done, right?
Yes.
Okay. And as soon as we get Frank on the phone, we'll jump right into that. But we are also going to tell you a little bit more about that particular conference. They are also going to have keynote speakers, including Dan Fireman, the founder of Fireman Capital Partners, Karen Muncasey, the doctor and founder of Garden Remedies, the both medical and recreational dispensary in Newton, Massachusetts. And they'll be having a lot of open panels. And here's the thing, 7:30 p.m. to 5 p.m. And you can go right on the Burns and Levinson website to find out more about this. I believe they also have a Facebook page for this event as well. And as soon as we can, we have Frank Segall. Do we have Frank Segall yet? Anybody? Bueller? Oh, still, that means more Phil, right? I can continue to Phil. Anyway, we've also met another member of the other co-chair is Scott Moskal of Burns and Levinson as well. Is Frank?
Hi, guys.
Hey, there he is.
Hey, Frank.
It's Frank.
Hi, Frank. How are you?
Hey, Curt, Jimmy. How you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for calling in and talking to us today. Frank, tell us a little bit about the event that's going on at the Waltham Westin Boston Hotel.
Sure. I'm very excited about it. This is our third year hosting our own cannabis conference. Burns and Levinson, under my watch and Scott Moskal's watch, we launched a dedicated practice in cannabis over 7 years ago. We were the first major Boston law firm to do so, and one of the first major corporate law firms in the country to launch a dedicated practice. And we always felt that we should have, a really top event that brings operators, professionals, investment bankers, investors from around the country to Boston so that other people can really hear their insights and their wisdom. This is not a seminar. This is a real practical conference. We've got 4 or 5 panels throughout the day. We've got some of the top operators and professionals, businessmen and women in the country that come in and share their insights, their experiences, what's good, what's bad. And we also have the opportunity with the commissioner, Steve Hoffman. He allows me to interview him and grill him for 45 minutes. So it's a bit of a no-holds-barred, but we get his insight. He's a terrific guy, and we really do try to share practical issues that are going on in the Commonwealth and throughout the United States in this burgeoning industry.
Yes, indeed. And, I got to ask you a question, Frank. In your opinion, okay, do you think Steve Hoffman is happy being the chair of the Cannabis Commission? I mean, obviously, that might be something you could ask him.
Well, that's something I will ask him. I asked him that last year, and I'm sure things are a bit more difficult this year than he anticipated. So I'm sure he's a man up for the challenge, but whether he's happy or not, I'll let him answer that question.
Yeah, fair enough. And you can also ask him about, he's a fan of the L.A. Lakers, too. I'll give you a little insight about that, and he may have an opinion or two about what's going on in basketball these days, but that's not, I'm sure that's not exactly on your questions to ask, but I'll give you a little insight.
I'm sure he's happier about the Lakers than he is about the process of getting a license in the States.
That's right. And, of course, that is probably the biggest challenge amongst everybody. And the number one question, I would think, is the social equity and economic empowerment whole principles that we're trying to introduce here in Massachusetts, and they've struggled getting this program going. And I'm guessing everybody's frustrated with that.
I think everyone is frustrated with that, and the question is, does the structure that the CCC, the Cannabis Commission, has implemented, does it work? And I think the answer is no, it doesn't. I mean, it's clearly evident by what's been going on. And, if you're familiar, and our audience, may not understand the intricacies of these laws, it's very hard to back those candidates and find capital that's necessary. And capital is hard enough to get in this industry. It's actually one of the most difficult things these days. And there's a bit of a crisis going on in the capital markets in cannabis. But it's hard to get investors to take a minority position themselves and put up all the capital to back, whether it's social equity or any person in that regard. And, the capital is not there. And the programs that the CCC has thought about implementing, about grants and things of that nature, or loan programs. I mean, you want to operate a cultivation center properly, it's going to cost you $10 to $15 million. You want to build a retail center, it's going to cost you, if you do it right, $500,000 to $1 million. And those funds aren't out there. And as I said, people just are not willing to invest blindly, so to speak, in people who don't have the experience but may qualify because of some unique nature of their background. And I think these laws have to be revisited. And maybe there are other ways to structure them so that you can encourage social equity, but maybe it's not a controlling position. Maybe it's a minority position and an active role in the enterprise. But right now, it's clearly broken.
Frank, this is Curt. You brought up a key phrase there with the funding, so I'm going to have to ask you. The Safe Banking Act came out with a lot of glory, a lot of celebration, and has kind of been a little bit of pushback, at least in the media, as far as what it's actually going to do for the industry. Where do you guys stand as a law firm, or maybe yourself, on the Safe Banking Act and where it's at, maybe in relationship to Massachusetts?
Well, we are, as a law firm, our practice area, and partner Scott Moskal is really at the forefront of this. We're very active on trying to resolve the banking issues. And we are general counsel to a number of companies that are active in that space. For example, we took and represented Gardner Federal Credit Union in helping them get compliant to take deposits. And they were the first to take recreational deposits. So that's an area we're very, very focused on in helping companies, credit unions, state chartered banks, get into the banking system. So, nationwide, there are about what they say is about 500 credit unions and state chartered banks that are taking deposits, and that seems to be growing. Not at a rapid pace, but it is growing, and it's growing in Massachusetts. Originally we only had Century Bank. Now we have Gardner Federal Credit Union, and there are Baypost and a few others that are coming online. But there's no question that the Safe Banking Act would be a huge step forward into helping to solve some of these problems and bring further legitimacy and further mitigate this specter of an illegal industry because it's not legal at the federal level. It's passed the House. Obviously it's got to get through the Senate, and Mitch McConnell is the gatekeeper to that. And I'm not so sure that it's a cannabis-related issue with respect to pushing it forward, because there's been a lot of bipartisan willingness to do so. I think that there are other political issues at play here that are taking priority over getting this bill passed. But everyone certainly would like to see it passed. But in the interim, the void and the gap, not having that bill passed, there are banks, credit unions that are stepping up and starting to take more deposits. And clearly on the CBD hemp side, we're advising and consulting with more institutional lenders who are starting to decide to get into the banking of that part of the industry.
So I understand Tina Sprague is going to be at your event on Wednesday. She is the head of Gardner Federal Credit Union, correct?
Yes, she will be. She's the president, and she's participated with us in the past, and she's a terrific spokesperson for the industry and for banking, and she was a pioneer, one of the pioneers in Massachusetts, to decide. She was the first one to decide, I'm going to take direct deposits.
Right.
So, our hats off to her, and it's a privilege to represent her.
You mentioned, obviously, the political ramifications of Mitch maybe not wanting to put forth a Democratic initiative like cannabis. But where do you think he stands as far as his own state, Kentucky, hemp farmers, the issues they've had with transporting truckers being arrested because the police can't tell the difference? Is he in a little bit of a bind here with the bipartisan support in his home state, where he might have to move on it as opposed to kind of sit there? And he did have a lunch, was it last week? He was out in California meeting with cannabis leaders. So what's your gut tell you? Are you advising people if we get some free advice? What do you think?
That's a tough one. It's a great question. Hemp and CBD, because of the state Farm Act deschedulizing them, even though the FDA has still clouded that issue, whether or not beverages are legal, things of that nature. It's a bit removed, and I think it's going to be easier for hemp and CBD to be banked, even if this act doesn't pass, because for the first time I am seeing federally chartered institutions asking us about banking those companies, and not only taking their deposits, but extending lines of credit to them as well and other credit facilities. So, it's clearly in his backyard, and whether he's tying the two as tightly together, I'm not sure. Because I wouldn't say that necessarily there will be a, quote, banking crisis for hemp and CBD as it becomes more mainstream, but there clearly still is this issue of the federal illegality hanging over cannabis that you don't have over hemp and CBD anymore.
There's the law and the letter of the law, Frank, and then there's reality. There's tons of CBD everywhere in stores. We're right in the middle of a vaping crisis where the black market has been empowered by some of these strict regulations. And, people are dying now by using these illegal products. But reality, they're here. And, when you pass a bill, the Farm Bill, and tentatively, or at least, officially in the public and in the news, that hemp and CBD is now a legal entity. But in reality, they still haven't figured it out how they're going to regulate the product. And also, I really don't think they did their research on CBD before they passed that Farm Bill. What do you think about that?
Yeah, CBD is an interesting topic of discussion. There's a huge wave of companies getting into the CBD space, and the forecasters will tell you that it's going to be bigger than cannabis. Right. A lot of people in cannabis will tell you that it's kind of like snake oil. If it doesn't have THC in it, it really doesn't do anything. It's more of a placebo. That's one side of the spectrum. The other is that it has, healing powers, et cetera. And that's where you see, you're right. There's the letter of the law, and there's what we tell clients is we'll give you practical business advice. So with respect to CBD, any CBD, derived from hemp in the eyes of the FDA is still legal. And you're right. You're seeing stuff all over the place, but a lot of that stuff is illegal. And the reason it's still on the shelves is because the FDA does not have the resources to enforce the removal of those products. What you did see recently is more warning letters by the FDA. They actually fined, as I recall, Curaleaf,
correct,
who was going into CVS. And that was the first time in a while that they've really taken a more stronger approach. Not only did they fine them, but they issued a cease and desist, and they made them change the packaging.
They're right. It was the labels. It was the labels that were really the causing, because they didn't have any disclaimers. And, of course, that goes to language again, Mr. Attorney, correct?
Right. So the practical answer is, you want to sell CBD, cosmetics, topical, go ahead and do it. Don't make any medical claims, and the FDA won't bother you.
Right.
The legal answer is it's still technically illegal. But if you get into food, beverage, even pet food, and you're seeing CBD in all of these products, the FDA has come out in writing and said, look, these things are illegal. But, again, it's part of the resources. I do think if you saw a major player trying to go into a major chain or retail store with a CBD-infused beverage, I think that store would have those products removed pretty quickly.
Right.
Frank, you brought up a great point, and it burns my bong. Scott Gottlieb, ex-director of the FDA, wrote an opt-in piece in the Wall Street Journal last week, basically saying, you know what, we have really bad cannabis laws between state and federal. The FDA should work, which should be descheduled. He literally could have worked on that process for almost 2 years. He was at the FDA. When he steps away, he makes this statement like, oh, we really should have fixed that. Oh, boy. What do you tell clients that call you when that kind of thing comes out? The ex-head of the FDA tells us we need to deschedule, yet he did nothing in the 2 years he was there.
No, Curt, I react the same way you did. Is where the hell were you 2 years ago?
Right. Exactly. He could have done something the whole way. Like, they say the same thing about President Obama. Why not out the door? Why didn't you fix this mess? But go ahead.
Yeah. Look, everyone's hoping that there'll be some guidance, some regulations coming out soon that will interact properly with the states and what you can do in this area. But, look how slowly legislation is being passed in this industry, right? I mean, except at the state level. I mean, more states have certainly adopted even medical. You have to, I believe, 34, 33 states now, and then you have another 11 for rec. And, you're still waiting for the big boys, New Jersey, New York, to see what will happen. Florida, eventually you would think that all that will fall in line. But that's at the state level. The federal level just is moving so slowly. Everyone has said this should be approved. Over 63% of Americans have said this should be approved. But, there's a lot of politics that go on outside of the cannabis industry, between the House, the Senate, our president, that foreshadow. We thought we had huge momentum at the beginning of the year with the Safe Banking Act, and it just got pushed aside. So, there's a lot going on with impeachment, et cetera. All these things just clog that pipe, and cannabis isn't at the top of everyone's agenda on Capitol Hill, unfortunately.
But at least it's on the agenda now. They've had more movement. There's something like 1,100 bills in Congress right now involved with cannabis legislation. We're actually going to talk to a podcast group that works out of D.C. in a few minutes here on the show. But at least they've made some progress. And you mentioned about CBD and lotions, and I'm going to give a plug to a company that everybody seems to know about because they're using, and Rob Gronkowski has actually endorsed this product, the CBD Medic Group. They're the only ones out there with an FDA-approved lotion with the proper labeling and disclaimers that are on the shelves of most CVS's, except in New England.
Well, I'll be honest with you. I haven't looked at their labeling, et cetera. I don't know what it means when they say FDA approved, because I'm not aware of anyone being cannabis CBD products being FDA approved.
Okay.
So I'd like to read the fine print on that one.
I can also introduce you
I
to...
bet you it really says it's FDA compliant. I'll be shocked if it's FDA approved. There's only one drug that has been cannabis that has been approved by the FDA that I'm aware of.
And that's the Epidiolex one, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I will tell you this, that their CEO, Perry Entelman, and I have become friendly. I've got an interview with him that is being launched on Monday on the Pro Cannabis Media Group. And he does talk about that. And, well, you may be correct in the actual language, and that's what lawyers do. You guys are so good at that language thing. They have a patent that is approved by the FDA for this lotion, and that's what his claim is, and that's what he said to me over and over and over again. And, again, have I looked at one of those labels? No, I can't, because it's not in New England CVS's, but it's in other CVS's all over the country. It's a kind of a fascinating story. And of course, they were in the news again today because now they're getting in bed with the Kraft Group. Of course, that's going to be announced next week, I think on the same day that you guys have your conference up in Waltham. So, Frank,
I'll tell Gronk he's welcome to come to the conference to make the announcement.
There you go. Well, there you go. I actually might be able to pass that on to Perry anyway. But Frank, what's your goal from this conference? What are you expecting to get out of it besides a lot of opportunities to have high-level discussions with people that are in this industry? What's your goal for this?
Well, with any nascent industry, one of the best things that can happen is when people entering that industry actually collaborate. And we see that with a number of our clients in the industry. We encourage them to talk to other clients, to share ideas, because it's, no pun intended, it's a growing industry, and you're going to go out off the path once in a while, and you're going to make mistakes. And the more you can share insight, experiences, advice, even though you're, quote, competitors, it's a young industry. There's plenty of room for a lot of people in this space. We encourage that. And part of, the DNA of my group and myself with our clients is to connect them with other groups that can be helpful, that can help their businesses. We do a lot of networking for our clients. And so this conference is, as much as it is educational and practical, it's also a great networking event. And our clients walk out of there with new relationships, and we've had clients say to us, hey, I cut a business deal I was at your conference. And that's what we encourage. And that's why if you look at, who's at this conference, you're going to find that there's a lot of opportunities to actually talk to some of the top players in the country, whether they're operators, investors, or other professionals. So we hope people come and they not only learn something, but they make connections. That's my goal.
Frank, when you get a call at your law firm from an MSO or someone out of state, and they start talking to you about what's going on in Massachusetts, and you're hearing about what's going on in their state, and what have been some of the surprises or the surprising things you have told them when you're on the phone and discussing Massachusetts, or what they're telling you is happening in a Florida or a Michigan or an Illinois? Is there any type of trends or things you're surprised at from hearing from other states, or that you're telling people?
Well, actually, our cannabis practice is national. So we are doing deals from Boston to California, and I probably have deals going on in 13 states right now. So we're seeing directly what's happening in other states, because we have clients throughout the United States, and I'm very, very proud that we've built one of the top national practices in the cannabis space. What you are seeing, particularly, and we talk about this at the conference, the problems on the West Coast are on the East Coast as well. Accessing capital is very, very difficult, and that's affecting everybody. The stock market, this particular sector, look, the valuations were ridiculous to begin with. In the stratosphere that they never should be at, and a lot of them are still there. But most of these stocks have fallen over 50% since the beginning of the year in enterprise value. And what does that do? Well, that makes it tougher for those public companies to go back to the public markets to raise capital. So what's happening is there's a capital crunch going on. And what you're seeing, and we're seeing this in a lot of states, seeing in California, seeing in Massachusetts, is a lot of these companies are cash strapped, and that's starting to affect their operations. And you're going to start to see a shakeout, in my opinion, because we're getting these calls and we're advising clients on both sides, those who are looking to acquire, those who need capital, those who are looking to sell. and you're going to start to see a real shakeout here if the capital markets don't reopen. And I still think there's a way for those valuations to continue to drop before they're at a level where people will take it more seriously in investing new capital. What you're also seeing is when that happens is opportunity. And we are advising, and we're now representing a number of lending funds that want to lend into the cannabis space. They're not banks, they're not financial institutions. They're hedge funds or private money, and we're representing a few of these groups that are taking the lead in providing capital. It's mostly to the large MSOs. They will loan to smaller operators if the credit's there, if the assets are there. But you're going to see more of an emergence. I think you're going to see more people getting into the secured debt space. And right now I have 4 clients who are in the space or are forming funds to get into the space. So capital is a real problem nationwide. Social equity, which we talked about at the top of the show, we're seeing that in other states. Putting in regulations that require you to meet this policy, the priority, et cetera. And again, those states are having trouble launching those kind of initiatives because of capital, because people are just not willing to support a minority position in that kind of enterprise. So social equity is an issue not just in Massachusetts, but throughout the U.S. as well. So there are a number of issues that they're not localized. I think what's localized here in Massachusetts is the frustration that operators and applicants have trying to get through the process because the CCC is understaffed. There's thousands of applications up there, and the process needs to move faster. I mean, that's the biggest issue locally, is getting these stores open much faster because, you have, maybe less than 30 stores.
Frank,
in the enterprise.
I have 10 seconds to ask you one last question. You walked right into it. Are we going to see a first major cannabis bankruptcy, someone like MedMen?
No, it's a great question, and that's certainly what I was talking about, was the distress that we're starting to see. You cannot take advantage of the bankruptcy code if you're a cannabis operator. So you've got an issue there. What can you do? Well, you got to look at the local states, and every state is different. But basically, you're looking at either a wind down, you're looking at what's an ABC called an assignment for benefit of creditors, if you can do that, or you're looking for a receivership. So these are issues that when we're representing lenders, we address in the documentation, because you have to be forward thinking on that regard. But it's a great question. A lot of people think that MedMen could very well be the first to go into some sort of a wind down dissolution. I would assume that there'd probably be some sort of a restructuring or sale in that situation. But we are definitely starting to see distressed opportunities.
Great. Hey,
and I do use the word opportunity because people turn those into opportunities.
Right. Frank Segall of Burns and Levinson's Cannabis Division, thank you so much for joining us. How can people find out about the big conference on Wednesday? Right on your website, I'm guessing.
Well, they can go to burnslev.com. And what I would like to offer your audience is I'll give you my email. And the first 10 people who email me who want to attend the conference, they'll go as my guest.
Ooh, okay.
And everyone after that, we'll give them a comp code. We'll give them $100 off the price. I think it's about $300 to attend. But anyone else, we'll give them a special code for your show.
All right.
But my email is fsegall, Segall,
yep,
at burnslev, burnslev.com. So fsegall at burnslev.com. And if any of your audience is interested in that, just have an email, say I'd like to attend.
All right. Hey, thank you so much for taking the time, Frank. I know you're a busy guy, and I will probably look forward to seeing you next week at some point.
Excellent. Good luck, guys. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Frank Segall of the Burns and Levinson Cannabis Group. We're going to take a break and then come back on the other side with our Vote Pro podcast guys out of D.C. And this Weed Talk Live show will continue in just a moment. You're part of history, Bruce. You've carved yourself a nice little niche, and I am honored that we've actually had an opportunity to talk. And I guess we have to give credit to this guy, Curt Dalton, over here from Cannabis.net, who's about to bring my headdress on.
Finish up
Okay,
strong.
I'm certainly. Thanks a lot, Curt. Can you keep a straight face and look at me at this time?
It is a different look, but you know what I found when I'm here is everybody that's been at this conference really is. They're trying to find a way to be involved, and not on the next day or week, but for the next 10 years. And so there's been all kinds of characters here, and I found that I didn't meet anybody who was here that wasn't genuine trying to find a path for Jamaica. And so, you know what, you're doing the same thing. You may be culturally appropriating somebody's stuff, appropriate or not, but you...
I paid American dollars for this.
I think you guys are the pro-cannabis story. And what's happening here is it's a very pro-cannabis crowd.
And we are back live on We Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young.
And I'm Curt from Cannabis.net.
.nut or .net?
.net. We got our shirts on. We got Jamaica going.
We have a lot of Jamaica.
Who's up next, Jimmy?
That was actually a lot of fun hanging out with you and Curt in Jamaica. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on, and we will have Bruce, your friend Bruce, on the phone with us at the end of the last. By the way, we don't know what's going to happen, and that's why we love live streams. It's never a dull moment. But I know we are connecting with the Vote Pro Pot guys out of D.C. These guys have had a podcast for a number of years. They've got quite a big following, and I believe we've got Jay on the phone. Jay, are you there with us now?
Hey, what do you say, Jimmy? What's going on, brother?
There they are. There's our guys. Introduce yourselves to everybody, because it's all three of you, right?
We're all here.
I'm Phil Adams.
Go ahead.
I'm Andrew McCready.
And Phil, are you there too, Phil Adams?
Yep.
So
I sounded first. It just kind of went into either, I guess.
Yeah, that's all right. You know what? We've got, three different people in three different locations, and we're talking to people all over the world right now. That's the nature of the Internet, and we do the best job we can of connecting everybody to talk about this. And I think at this point, you guys are Vote Pro Pot. That's the name of your podcast. Why don't you tell us, first of all, where we can find that, just in case we get into it and we're not able to wrap it up. But first, get yourselves a plug out there.
Sure. Go ahead, Jay. You got this.
You can find us at votepropot.com, and you can, if you go to our website, we've got a bunch of information on voting pro pot, obviously, and we've also got a link to our podcast.
Terrific. And you guys do this once a week, once a month? How often do you do this podcast?
We do this once a week. We have a full episode, and then another time a week we have what we call a little mini. It's just a few minutes, a real quick hit, and once a week it comes out. The main one comes out on Thursdays, and we get a little more in depth with that and have a little more fun with it.
Real quick, congratulations, by the way, to the D.C. area. I know you guys have a team called the Washington Nationals in the World Series this year, taking on either New York or Houston, whoever the American League comes out of. So congratulations on that.
Yeah.
Thank you. And that's very nice coming from a Sox fan.
Yeah, or you assume from yes, and of course I am. And by the way, until someone wins the World Series in 2019, we are still the defending champions, even though we embarrassed ourselves for $230 million worth of payroll. Guys, there's a lot going on in D.C. right now. What's that?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Jimmy.
All right. So there's a lot going on right now in Washington, D.C. Regarding the Safe Banking Act that did pass the U.S. House of Representatives. It moves on to the Senate. We've got Mitch McConnell going to California and doing lunch with the cannabis industry, which I found fascinating. I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall or a fly on the table for that part. What's your feeling down there? Can you taste the temperature of the cannabis community in the Washington, D.C. area? And do you think the Republican-led Congress of the Senate will actually pass this at some point?
Well, I believe that Mitch, it's sort of has always been against the legalization of cannabis and won't even let it even go to committee. So, but now they did add a few things to the bill. One is a gun act.
Right.
I believe it's a Gun Protection Act.
Yep.
Which I think might sweeten the pot for him. But I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't back it, but I believe he will.
Well, let's hope so. And what about the stigma in that greater Washington, D.C.? Of course, in the District of Columbia, it's okay to use it, correct?
That's right. It's you can use it. You can grow enough for your own use, and selling.
But you can't sell it. Not in D.C.
You can gift it though, right?
You can gift it, can't you?
Right.
Yes,
you could buy a
gift
T-shirt for $100 and get a free little package with it. You know.
Isn't it
Well,
funny?
I volunteered with the D.C. Cannabis Campaign when they started the ballot initiative, and the problem was the D.C. city, the Congress, which controls the city council, like a state house would for any other city. They said you cannot spend any city money setting up regulations for a adult use industry. So the only thing they could do was legalize home grow and be able to give it away, but you can't sell it. So that's where it stands now. And there's also a legal medical marijuana industry in D.C.
And Maryland and Virginia, because I know all you guys are living in different states down there. Maryland has a medical program, correct?
Maryland has a medical. The adult use regulations have been written up, but they didn't vote on it this year. Next year, hopefully it will. As it stands now, it does allow for home grow. But the great Commonwealth of Virginia is still an illegal state. But that's changing.
I live in Virginia, Jimmy. This is Jay. And they have some very strict laws here. Now, they claim that they have a medical program, but it's a joke, you know. It's no THC, CBD, but it's very difficult to get. You have to be dying, basically, to get it. And the laws in Virginia are incredibly strict. If you're caught with more than a half an ounce, so you got 3/4 of an ounce in your car, it's a 1-year mandatory and $2,500 fine. It's a felony.
That's crazy. It is the 21st century, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I just,
It's
Yeah.
crazy.
Hey, you guys, along with Marijuana Moment, really follow the D.C. stuff, so I have to ask, it's kind of a standard question. What's your best guess on the federal law change as far as when, and then how is it done? Executive order, descheduling, and act of Congress. What's your best guess if you were in Vegas putting a chip down on a table? What's your best guess? Maybe Jay first.
You know, I would. It's really difficult. You're talking about federal, right?
Yeah, absolutely, the big one, the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I don't have any idea. I would think it's going to come in incrementally, like so many other things do, because it's so much more palatable that way. So I can see Congress dropping little laws here and there that take steps, but I don't think any big sweeping change is going to come. I don't see it.
well,
Andrew, what do you?
Go ahead, you guys.
Well, I this is Andrew. I believe that one of the parties might pick, or the Democratic Party is definitely picking up. They've been pro-cannabis reform for quite some time, and we're seeing more and more Republicans changing their tune, jumping on the bandwagon, or jumping in front of the parade, as we like to say. But I don't see it happening this year, and maybe next year, but we'll see. If it happens, it's going to be out of nowhere. It's going to be out of left field.
We keep people as updated as we can, week by week, on what's going on. Andrew's a wealth of knowledge on this stuff, and I think as far as being persuasive is part of what we try to do, and part of what my role in this, being the resident conservative of the three of us, is to speak to conservatives in language that conservatives understand and say, come on, fellas, this is an individual liberty issue. This is constitutionality, and there's a very strong conservative argument to be made for it. So, we all play our parts in this, and I think the people who listen in get a lot of different perspectives on it.
I'm going to give you a curveball and get you off politics. One at a time. If you were stranded on a deserted island and could only take one strain of cannabis with you for the rest of your life, what's the one strain? I'll let you each say one name that you would bring with you, your favorite.
This is Jay, and I'm an edibles guy, so I'm going to go with gummies, man.
Fair enough.
Okay. Andrew?
I have to go with the Sour Diesel.
Sour D. Good choice.
And Phil?
Is there a Scarlett Johansson strain?
She delivers it on Fridays.
Yeah, I've been on that one.
I changed my mind. No more Sour Diesel.
Hey,
It's my birthday cake, actually.
Yeah.
I have fun with that.
as long as you have responsible fun with this product, that's what we preach through Pro Cannabis Media, is responsible use of an adult product. Get yourself educated. That's one of the reasons why Jay and I bonded on the first call that we actually had.
Jay's going to be living on coconuts and gummy bears on this island, so...
It is what it is.
Okay, I got a question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your governor thinking
Great question about Charlie Baker.
banning vape pens for 4 months?
So I would say that what Charlie Baker and the mayor of Boston, Mayor Walsh, has done, they've done a great job of retarding the cannabis industry since the very beginning. Yeah. They were not in favor of it at all, ever. They both have some history with substance abuse. And another reason why they are trying to do everything they can to slow down the growth of this industry. And he did it, calling for a public health emergency. And by the way, there has been now one official death in Massachusetts from this horrible lung disease that's out there. And, we can't ignore it. But again, his knee-jerk reaction was overplayed. There are now some litigation, or at least talk about litigation about this, and trying to get the opportunity for the vaping stores to perhaps survive this. He should have put aside an emergency fund to float the vaping business, as opposed to what he did, which was completely strangle it. But he didn't do it that way. He didn't do it that way. I didn't vote for him, by the way. Sorry. He's not.
I read an article this week, and they're saying it may not be the additives after all as much as the mechanical cartridge itself.
Which are the
it's going back to the heavy metals.
Right, and also the cheap materials that are being used. It's funny, I was at the New England Cannabis Convention a few weekends ago, and I was talking to a supplier up there, and he explained to me that, his cartridges come from China too, but they cost him $3.20 per cartridge, as opposed to the lowest grade, which are 88 cents. And that's a big difference.
Geez, no kidding.
Right. And needless to say, no one is inspecting or regulating those cartridges.
Well, we've been following the whole cartridge thing very closely, Jimmy. And people that want to find out what's going on week to week should check out our show, because we keep an update pretty much in the last month or two. Every week we've had a story on it, because it's changing constantly.
Right. Hey, guys, we thank you so much for taking some of your time out on a Thursday night to join us. I do hope we can continue these conversations both on future shows here up in the Boston area, and I look forward to chit-chatting with you guys on your podcast in the near future. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much, all three of you guys, for joining us, and we're going to. So again, thank you for joining us, guys, and we'll be in touch soon. Okay.
One last thing. We are now selling Vote Pro Podcast coffee mugs available on our website. And a question to you: did Steve D'Angelo really cut off his ponytails?
Not that I'm aware of. Haven't heard that one.
No, not at all. We actually talked to him. Yeah, 2 weeks ago we were hanging out with him, and he has both ponytails, and unless they're fake and they are attached to his hat, because he's always wearing his hat.
And he gets pretty fired up if you ask him if hippie culture needs to go away.
That's right. Thanks, you guys. Appreciate it. Those are the Vote Pro Pot guys from the Washington, D.C. They're all three of them are old musicians too.
They kind of have a Grateful Dead look to them. People were watching the screen,
and there's nothing wrong with that either.
No,
okay,
not at all.
Absolutely not. Curt, you convinced me to go down there with you.
Yeah, twisted your arm. Dragged you to the airport.
That's right. But you know what? I will admit that I met some really interesting people, and we're about to meet Patrick Pope and Liz Grow. First of all, I think it's a riot that her real name is Grow. And the Grow House is the show that these guys are producing for High Times TV.
So check them out, High Times TV, the Grow House. Just a great couple, literally couple, that are madly in love, and they love the cannabis plant, and they created a show. They just turned a camera on, and they're some of the coolest people. Try to check out their content on High Times TV, and we will be talking to Liz, who we hung out with in Jamaica, and we should tell them how we met. We were
go ahead, you could say.
We were doing exploratory research at a Jamaican dispensary, and we walk in with our little cameras, and there's Liz with this. It looked like a octagon whizzing around with a camera and filming and tagging people. So I guess she's on the line. How you doing, Liz?
Hey, Jimmy.
How you doing?
Her octagon room teammate is here too.
Thank God.
That would be Patrick, and I'm glad that you're feeling better, because I know that you were coming off your sick bed for this interview, and I do appreciate that.
This motivated me to get better.
So I want to. Curt is trying to take us back to the time we actually met at a dispensary in Jamaica in Montego Bay. But that was really what I consider to be a social club, and we know that in California they now have an official cannabis social club as well. Have you guys visited that yet?
Oh, you know what? We haven't visited the one in California. Are you talking about Lowell Cafe?
Yes.
Yeah, no, we haven't visited that one yet. But we've been to a number of cannabis social clubs throughout the country for our show Grow House on High Times TV. Plug number one.
And we good job. We've been plugging you now for the last 3 minutes. But we here in Massachusetts have an experimental program that I believe is going to be starting in 2020. Again, they don't do anything fast here. They really just don't. They've done a great job of
Crimea River, Jimmy. We're down here in Texas.
We can't even get it medicinally.
That's right. Yeah.
I do understand that, and you're right. That's why you guys get to travel so much too. I know.
Right.
Just check Liz's boot. Check the bottom of her boot. It's hollow.
What? So, guys, I mean, enlighten us a little bit about how you came up with the idea for the Grow House, because I know this is a very good story. It's a fun story.
Yeah, so, Patrick has been a professional video producer for 20 years. And so this is his job. I, on the other hand, was a closet stoner, business professional. Okay, I relied on cannabis in my daily life, but I was afraid to open up about it. And I really kind of felt ashamed, I think, about it until, I think, a couple of years, 2 years ago, I went on a business trip to Las Vegas, and I couldn't find any information about the legal weed that was there because I was so excited. And I just called Patrick in tears, and I'm like, we have to do something. We got to make a show.
and I was like, yeah, duh, you're absolutely right. So we just started turning our cameras on ourselves and the industry. Or at least just exploring the industry with cameras, and the rest was history. We haven't looked back since we started doing it. It felt right. The doors just started to open. The need for storytelling in cannabis was obvious once we were in it, and we don't plan on stopping.
That's awesome. Give our listeners and viewers at this point, what are some of the highlight shows or episodes you've done? What have been some of either the most educational or the most fun that you two have kind of put together?
Oh, well, the first one that comes to mind is where we were caught naked in a hemp field outside of Philly.
Okay, no, the other videos.
This is our show. No, we were, and yeah, we did a really fun episode just outside of Philly, just exploring Pennsylvania hemp, and exploring how the communities are now kind of relearning how to grow this, historic crop in that area. And we didn't have any clothes on. I mean, we did have a little clothes on, but
we were doing an Adam and Eve shot where we were.
I was just going to say, I'll take the bait. Of course, was this Amish country? What were you doing with your clothes off?
It was Amish country.
We gave them an eyeful.
I'm sure there were some of those leaves properly placed. Let's just say
Oh, for sure.
They were.
The concept was replacing the fig leaf with the hemp leaf.
Right. I get it. Oh, I get it, Patrick.
Obviously, Jimmy's tried this before.
Yeah,
of course.
Absolutely. I totally get that. I totally get that. Also, in the Boston Marathon, they give you the laurel wreath as you win it, right?
Right.
And it, too, looks like a hemp leaves too. So
Right.
So in Jamaica, we were all four of us were there. Who were some of the characters that you guys found down there that you got to spend some time with?
I have to tell you, I was so intrigued by just the Rastafarians that were there and sort of their purpose for being there. Protection of their strains and protection of their religious beliefs and their indigenous culture, and making sure that that's protected, and just kind of giving them airtime or learning about their stories as all of these people from out of Jamaica were there for this conference was a really, really cool mix for us to watch. And so I was really intrigued by that.
And and I, too, got to sit down with First Man, right? First Man? The Rastafarian that was in a lot of the panels. And I believe he also gave the benediction at the very beginning of the conference, too. And it was 7 minutes. It was a religious experience for me because, A, I'd never talked to a Rastafarian before. And he explained how... why the plant is so special to them and the role it's played, not just in his life, but in the culture and the history of that island.
Yeah. Yeah, God, don't you feel like you left that place with, so much more knowledge?
Oh, yes.
I mean, we are, ostensibly, cannabis experts. We travel, we turn a camera on it, we eat, sleep, and breathe it. But you relearn all that stuff when you get to Jamaica, I felt like.
Well, I got to ask you, we create a lot of content at cannabis.net. You guys are doing a lot of content. What's your dream get? What's your dream show? Are we going Hawaii? Are we talking to Snoop? What would be your Mount Everest? What's your dream show to put on the map?
No, the Mount Rushmore is what you want. Not Mount Everest.
Right.
Everest you can't get to the top of. Rushmore you can look at.
That's true. That's true. But what do you guys, what's your dream show? What are you hoping in the pinnacle?
God, so that's, I can't answer that. I think that we can't even begin to imagine how big the industry itself will get. And by default, the number of people and the number of eyeballs on it will grow. So, what the pinnacle would be for us is, having a positive influence, just in our own community, in our own country, on our globe, right? We want to change perceptions of this plant, and we want people to embrace it so that they can love themselves more. So that's really the pinnacle for us. But we do have a really exciting project in the works that we'd love to talk about.
Well, I think along with that vision that Liz just shared, one of the ways we're attacking that, it is through the mainstream. And how do we get positive cannabis content on cable or network TV? And that has always been the goal. And yes, there's all kinds of platforms that are streaming now that would be a much easier or more likely place to take something as risky as a cannabis topic show. Mm-hmm. But we believe that in order to change perceptions of the people who have heard that drugs are bad their whole life and treat cannabis as a drug, is to show them that it's not. It's actually a beautiful, booming business with great Americans and awesome people in it doing amazing things for their own hometown. And so we have been working very hard, and we have developed a show called Hustle and Grow. And I don't know if you guys said this, but Grow is actually Liz's last name.
Yep, I said it right off the top, and that was shocking to me when I first found that out too. I thought it was a stage name, obviously, but good for you, Liz.
It's like a weed porno name, Liz Grow. That's like, wow, is that your acting name?
I love it. I'll take it all day long. I didn't have anything to do with it, so I can really just sit there and nod my head and be grateful that it is my last name, but it's also my dad's last name and my grandfather's and my great-grandfather's. So.
I think that's great. Hey, Patrick, I want to get back to your comment and throw this out there. One of my biggest frustrations is the fact that public service announcements are not aired for for the most part, in legal states. And, all the media does, traditional media does, is look for the mistakes that the industry makes or the oopses as far as communication between the various dispensary licensees and the local towns. So all the media and anything that the general public hears about is negative, negative, negative. But Acreage Holdings created a PSA that they tried to place on the Super Bowl, and of course they were denied. But that is the kind of public service announcement that I really want to see here in Massachusetts, because it tells some of the strong, powerful, anecdotal stories of the people where they believe and have these stories where they say, look, cannabis has changed my life, or cannabis has saved my life.
Right.
And, can't we get that going somewhere?
I think it's a matter of just of persistence, right? And that we know that cannabis is going to change our country for the better. And so that we just have to keep marching forward. And these are the little defeats. And I say little because they're small. In the grand scheme, if we persist, and if this is the type of thing that we are driven to get out there, it will happen. And I believe that we are on the breaking point, and we are inches away from something really big, like transpiring that has that break that really just starts to flood the mainstream.
Yeah, and just meeting people like you, Jimmy, in Jamaica, and knowing that positive media exists. I think that's the first problem we have in this country. You show me a product that's praised in the media other than money.
I'm not sure it's been praised. They just talk about it a lot. You know?
Right, exactly. They just masturbate to it. Oh,
right.
Sorry.
Back to the weed porn stuff. I know.
There you go. Back to that again.
I'm done here, man. But yeah, it's just, so it's really uplifting for us to meet people like you in this industry that are pushing a positive message. And, man, I really believe at the end of the day, that's what people want. There's just not enough of it. And, I guess we'll prove the model, right?
Let's hope so.
Yeah. We have to wrap it up, but tell our listeners and viewers, how could they find you? High Times TV, can they Google you, website? Tell us where we can watch your shows.
Oh, my God, guys. High Times TV, we have a channel. It's called Grow House. You can also just find us on Instagram. We are going through some major exciting changes right now with the company. And so you'll be seeing a lot more of us. But Instagram at Grow House TX is the best place to keep your finger on the pulse. Hey guys, say hi to Bruce for us.
We will. He's coming up.
We'll absolutely do that. Liz Grow and Pat.
Nomads.
Big hugs from Boston back to you guys in Texas, and we're going to keep in touch, and we'll change the world one way or another, right, guys?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Die trying.
All right, man.
You got a friend enough. Cheers, guys.
Thank you very much. That's the Liz Grow and Patrick, the hosts of the Grow House on High Times TV.
Bruins. This is what power looks like. This is what equity looks like in the state of Massachusetts, and also what stick-to-itness looks like. The fight many people think was won in 2016. There's a lot more work to do, and for an organization to come out against social equity, against economic empowerment, that actually lets us know we have to redouble our efforts. We have to stick together. We have to continue to fight to make sure that cannabis is open, available, not only to those who are patients, which is very important, but also to people, normal folks who aren't millionaires and billionaires, and make sure that women and people of color lead this revolution in the state of Massachusetts.
And isn't it a shame that we have to, in 2019, kind of resurrect the same arguments, the same stuff that you've fought for years just to get the darn question on the ballot?
Yeah. This is settled law in the state of Massachusetts, but as we see across the country, settled law gets challenged every day. And I like my friends who have a bunch of letters behind their last name. That's really cool, and I respect those who are clinicians, but they can't prescribe what is going to change our neighborhoods and communities. And closing the wealth gap in the state of Massachusetts, which I actually forgot to bring up, the median net worth of a white family in Boston is $247,500. The median net worth of a black family is $8, right? So where are they at when it comes to closing that wealth gap? And in fact, where are they at with the services that don't get provided to communities of color at the hospital that they're actually in? I appreciate those who study, but more importantly, I appreciate those who practice and practice what they preach. If this is about healing, we know that this is a medicine. We also know that people get sent to jail in the state of Massachusetts at the rate of $60,000 a year to keep them behind bars. What could we do to help those who have depression, who have opioid addiction issues, and who are just simply troubled, or actually even who need a job? So when it comes down to it, we need to have folks come together, come to the table. You can study all you want. Come take a walk in my neighborhood. Come take a walk in my community and see what's going on in Grove Hall, in Roxbury, in Dorchester, and get out of the ivory tower and come to the community and see where policy meets people.
All right, welcome back. We're back.
Welcome
back to We Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young of Pro Cannabis Media.
And I'm Curt with Cannabis.net.
And you just heard from Tito Jackson, and he has joined us in studio here at our Performer TV in Quincy, Massachusetts. Tito, I appreciate so much for you coming in here tonight.
Thank you for having me. That's a really handsome brother on screen. I really appreciate that, man. That was a good day for me.
You know how to talk the talk, I got to tell you.
Yeah, that's what it's all about,
when
man.
Was Denzel Washington in Boston filming?
That's who's going to play me in the movie. Denzel's playing me in the movie, guys. That's who's going to play me.
That's cool. One of the messages you gave us there, Tito, was to come take a walk in my neighborhood, in your neighborhood.
Yes, yeah.
There is now movement. Pure Oasis now, I believe, has a license, and Kobe Evans is going to open up any day now.
Yep.
What is going on in your neighborhood as far as the cannabis community goes?
No, definitely. So I live in the Grove Hall section of the city of Boston, which is the intersection of Roxbury and Dorchester, and Pure Oasis is going right there in that neighborhood. I'm very proud, actually. Kobe and I went to high school together. We both went to Brookline High School. Very proud of what Kobe and Kevin Hart are doing. It is absolutely critical that we see people who live in neighborhoods and communities who've been disproportionately affected by the war on drugs. And these are communities that understand in that neighborhood. And I shout out to my friends in Western Mass and the like. But when it comes down to it, when you live in Boston, a school zone is not only when school is in, right? And it's around schools, it was around parks, and in that neighborhood, you saw thousands of people be incarcerated over marijuana, crack cocaine, heroin, and the like. And there's a disproportionality in the state of Massachusetts. How I came to do this work, I actually announced that I was supporting this as a city councilor on 4/20/2016 in the Boston Business Journal. I didn't actually know that the BBJ knew what 420 was at the time. It was very, very interesting.
You were being all sly.
I was like, okay, I didn't know. Okay, BB. Okay. So, but how I came to do this work is that I was Shalene, as well as Chanel stepped to me and they're like, yo, you need to step up on this issue. And they showed me data from the ACLU that showed in the state of Massachusetts in 2008, when actually having marijuana on you became legal, from 2008 to 2014, what you saw was a 300% higher chance of being arrested for possession if you're black, and a 700% higher chance of being arrested for distribution if you're black. I know that black people don't smoke at all. I know we don't sell it all. And in a state that is not predominantly black, there's a huge disproportionality there. So not enough yet is happening in the neighborhoods and communities. I'm looking forward to the legislation that Kim Janey in the city of Boston is actually advancing to make sure that there's equity. We see cities like Cambridge as well as Somerville and Waltham who are pushing equity programs, and we want people at the municipal level, the job I used to be in, to actually step up, because there's a lot of power in that opportunity.
Absolutely. And I just can't believe, Tito, that it is 2019. Mm-hmm. It's the 21st century. I thought we had moved forward as a people, and it just frustrates me to no end to hear the same stories coming out of inner cities. By the way, not just in Boston, mm-hmm. right? But in the inner city. The education is disproportionate. Yep. The arrests, I almost feel, I'll use the word impotent to do anything about it. What can I do? What can we do other than continue to talk about it?
So the interesting thing about cannabis, though, is that your local elections mean a hell of a lot more than your national elections, right?
Right.
So this happens on a state-by-state level at the State House across the... and by the way, I want to give both of you guys credit. This isn't your first time around the rodeo, right? No. You guys have been doing this for years. When people who are in elected office would run away from you,
right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness! It's a cannabis media. Let's like that. That's they're faster than anybody on the Patriots in the 4.2, right? 4.240. They're able to run the hell out of there, right? When they saw. So the thing is, one, it's organizing at the local level. I was actually just in Brookline at Netta. And interestingly, they're trying to roll back their hours, right? So you have a municipality who voted for this, and now they're actually trying to roll back the time and potentially the number of days they actually can be open, right?
To create more of a demand? I mean, you go by that place, there's always a line.
I get it. But what they're saying is that there's a impact on neighborhoods and communities around the place. So the battle is not over in that space. So I think it's absolutely critical that we support people who are running for state office, that we support people who are running for city council in and around the state of Massachusetts as well as other states, because it's absolutely critical. And these are the people who, if supported, are going to have the backbone to step forward and actually change this. And I want to also, again, give you guys props, because in the state of Massachusetts, it was not elected officials that changed the law. We need to go back and remember.
That's right.
Right? This is what we refer to as a referendum.
Yes.
What is a referendum? That means everybody has to vote. You got to get over 30,000 folks to sign signatures and spend a lot of money to get something on the ballot, because oftentimes, and I was an elected official, sometimes we're not profiled in courage when it comes to issues that matter. So that's one of the things that we can do. The other piece is that we can actually push, and I know that some of my friends who are in this industry were on the show prior. They are not as handsome as me, and that's why they didn't come in. So if they was
they were in after you.
They're not going to come in anymore.
Oh yeah,
either,
Denzel,
right?
I'm not going in now.
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to come in anymore. But when it comes down to it, we all need to be held accountable to also put our money where our mouth is in terms of actually funding people who are in the economic empowerment and equity program. There's a wonderful 20th century, maybe 21st century poet named Biggie Smalls, and he said it's all about the Benjamins, baby. That's a critical component in this space.
You know what's amazing that you're bringing this up during a week where we've seen some of the most successful African American personalities, athletes. I'm talking about LeBron James here, okay? Where money was right in the middle of his comments. You want to say something, don't you?
Well,
what's your take on that?
Because think about it, but even beyond the black-white issue, the NBA's doing business in China, right? One of their employees, the Houston Rockets general manager, Daryl Morey, tweets out support for democracy. And what happens? It blows up because it affects the business relationships between two entities. Isn't it always about the money, Tito?
No, it definitely is always about the money, and in that case, you have someone choosing the side of I guess I'd say the side of enterprise over the side of equity and democracy, and that becomes really critical. What we need to understand here is that this is a plant that is a healing plant, but it also has been based on the racist laws that we have had for years and years. It has been a harmful plant it's actually been an avenue for a lot of folks who've been sent to prison for long periods of time. And so it is absolutely critical also that we deal with one of the bills that is up at the State House right now would expunge right off the rip everybody's record. If you have a cannabis record, and I believe this on the House side, it is sponsored by my state representative, Representative China Tyler. We need to support her relative to that. Because, by the way, nobody should be making money on the for-profit side if people still have a record. So this piece around legalizing something, first, we need to deal with the harm that we've done to people and continue to do, because this is the gift that keeps on giving, right? Because when you go and you have a job and like, man, Jimmy, can I get a gig? Yeah, Jimmy, can I get a gig? Can I get a gig? Well, when it comes down to it, even with the ban in the box, at the point at which Jimmy is going to offer me a job, he gets to see my Corey, or in this case, I call it my resume.
Yes.
Right?
Because they call them curriculum vitae.
Government resume.
Well, this is a government, because the piece is the people who have the most experience in the cannabis industry did it, quote unquote, illegally. Right. So I have a friend who's a grower. He happens to be. He's been growing for 20 years. He's 33.
Whoa.
Yep. Do the math.
Okay. There's some math that goes around in that space.
Federal felon for 20 years.
Right. Exactly. So the real piece has to be, how do we repair some of the harm with what's happening? Mind you, there are millions of dollars. You have an industry right now on the wholesale side. You're talking about $4,000 to $4,500 a pound. Because of the vape ban that is there. It's popped up prices. But when it comes down to it, the question is, what do we do with the profits that we have? Because a budget is a value statement. Where you spend your money speaks to really what you care about and what you're about. And so we need to, this is an industry, and it's a for-profit industry now in the state of Massachusetts, and we need to be reinvesting in the neighborhoods, the communities, and the people who are most harmed in this space.
No question about it. And $316 million worth of cannabis has been sold in Massachusetts since November 2018, when it became legal. That you are starting to see stories about the 3% that gets paid back to the communities. And you're starting to see, first of all, there's no city councilor or mayor in any town that is going to not take that money.
Well, Fall River would.
That's an exception. That's an exception. That's an exception.
Can I get another water? Okay.
We'll take your money.
Hell to the no is the answer to. They are going to take. It's all about the Benjamins.
I know. I understand.
All about the Benjamins.
And they should understand that this is a great vehicle to improve schools, to improve roads in their community. Welcome it into the community. Don't look at that as an evil. It freaks me out that it's the 21st century and they're still fighting for this.
And understand, a really interesting fact in the state of Massachusetts is that in the city of Boston, that was a joke. But in the city of Boston, I really appreciate how this thing works here, brother. Okay, can I have an ounce? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay,
wait, I got that.
That's it. Okay, cool. So
Cristal.
He hooked me up with another water. I'm just saying, hey, this is how it works here. But when it comes down to how this is going to work, I think we actually hold on. What was your question one more time?
My question is, I'm just angry. I'm
He's
an angry white man. I'm an angry white man about how how my
okay, y'all got a brother nervous in there. Okay, cool. We get
I just don't understand how we're still trying to sell it. The voters have voted.
Yes.
The town councils control those host agreements, and it's tailor made to improve their communities with cash.
Yep.
And they're resisting this.
They are, right? And so the piece is, one, we have to look at what voters have done, right? And as an elected official, right, I know we do the representative democracy thing, but when it comes down to it, people know what they're voting for. So we need to actually give them the credit that they knew what they were voting for when they move forward here. We know in Colorado over $250 million was collected last year. Just think about what that would mean to your property taxes if the state of Massachusetts had to collect an additional $250 million. You would not like the people who were up there. So this is and it's an amazing way to on the revenue side, because as an elected official, again, you don't like me if I raise your property tax. And the state of Massachusetts, we obviously have Proposition 2.5. Other states don't have that. But this allows for new money, new revenue to flow. It's essentially a sin tax, and it's a usury tax based on the people who are participating in the industry, and it's not a broad-based tax. It is a good thing. So we actually, again, have to support people at the local level and at the state level who are actually stepping forward and understand this. And I also, we want to see equity not only in urban centers across the state of Massachusetts, we want to see equity across the whole state of Massachusetts. By the way, on the alcohol tip, right, what Weed Maps actually is a really interesting, has some stats. Hey, you know what? Crime goes down by about 10%. You see housing values actually go up in neighborhoods and communities where cannabis on the recreational side is legal. There are some very good, and by the way, 25% decrease in
teen use.
Yes, and individuals who have fatal. So you have the teen use.
Teen use goes down in Washington State and in Colorado. Exactly. They're both the biggest legal states.
And then you have a decrease in fatal overdoses.
It's angry. His hands going every direction.
I know you're all about love, brother. I know you're all about love in here.
I am totally about love. Yeah. Okay.
and I don't know you. So I don't know if you missed. Did you miss this?
The memo?
He called me about the vest. I just went straight black.
The vest situation, or if we want to go back to the Future, why are we wearing a life preserver? It's all good.
Right. Yeah. That's right. And by the way, Tito, it's a fashion statement, but I'm schwitzing over here. Yes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you guys
I had to represent the University of New Hampshire.
Okay, that's
we got Brookline High plugged. We got New Hampshire, Dorchester. We're good.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Let me ask you. You also are involved in the industry, have some licenses. Tell us what's going on.
Yep. So I own a company called Verdant Medical, and so we actually are vertically integrated. So we are going to do the great part about cultivating. We're also going to process as well as grow. We have 2 host community agreements and 2 amazing communities. One, the town of Rowley, which is North Shore, Route 1. We're doing, so you know Rowley?
I know Rowley, but we don't. It reminds me of Montague and Turner Falls. Why the hell can't we get this into the city of Boston?
I'm coming back. I'm coming back on that side too. So brother has to grow some stuff too. So
you got to grow out the woods.
You got to grow in the woods.
I understand.
Right. And they were the town of Rowley was amazing. We were able to receive a host community agreement in 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
But you still had to get a location and pay rent before you moved in, correct?
Well, you're talking about my money, and you're right. It's so expensive.
Correct. And we know there's precedent. I'm going to Maynard now. I'm going to Maynard because David Rabinovitz of New Can Group created a precedent by getting that host agreement before he had to get a lease and pay rent.
That is a wonderful thing, and I think. So when we look at multiple states, so we see some states, and actually with the medical licenses, understand you got a medical license from the state first, and then you found a community. It's switched on a recreational side where you have to go get a host community agreement at the local level and then apply at the state level. This issue of how much it costs, and in particular for equity candidates who, I don't know if it's a really sad stat, but there's a report called The Color of Wealth. and it looked at black families and white families in the city of Boston. It looked at their median net worth. The median net worth of a white family is $247,500. The median net worth of a black family.
I know what it is because you just said it on the show. It's $8, Tito.
$8. $8. Right?
That's disgusting.
It's disgusting. And when it costs $1 million to open a store, right? That's a lot of $8.
Yes, it is.
Right.
So a lot more than
when it comes down to it, that's a whole lot. So those disparities are actually a very very real issue. My other store is actually we have a site in Provincetown. Which is going to be really awesome.
Yes.
We're right on 44 Captain Birdie Way.
Provincetown. What you guys do?
Provincetown is awesome.
Can't make this stuff up.
Faux cheesy. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. And they were and have been very, very accepting, right? And I would also note there's going to be some towns that do really well.
Right.
Right? And there are going to be some places that are not going to be as happy over the course of time when they find out, you know what, this is not the devil's lettuce, right? This is not all of the thing. Kim and Kanye did happen, so like part of the stuff they put out, yeah, okay, Kim and Kanye happened. But when it comes down to it, we know that this is a real industry. And by the way, let's also get down to the fact this is medicine that actually helps people.
Oh my God,
and
totally.
They're not banning. They're not banning all of the legal drugs that we have in CVS. They're not banning OxyContin, Percocet, Vicodin, Dilaudid, and all of the other things. Because, by the way, I've never had anyone come up to my car and say, I need a joint. Like, that has never happened in my life thus far. So when it comes down to it, we also need to look at this has been the off ramp, and we don't have the data because obviously we have the FDA issues, but this has been the off ramp for a lot of folks off the ramp of addiction and into a better life. And I think there's some things that we can look at in that space.
With you going through the process and getting the 2 locations and the licensing, what was it like for you?
Wow.
How did you get them? How did it become? How did you get approved?
Yeah. So when I got involved in the company and ended up purchasing it, they were partway down the way with the Provincetown side.
Okay.
On the Raleigh side, we had to find that site, so we had to work through some folks who do site selection, and then we actually have 2 sites that are in the application space right now. One in Boston, in Mattapan Square, which would be an amazing community to be in. I'm 2 miles up the street in the Grove Hall section, and we also have another application in Somerville. And I would note that Somerville has done a really interesting piece. They made it a lot easier for folks in Somerville. They greenlit all of the properties that were eligible to be in the mix. So, by the way, that from a money perspective, because we have to do understand in this space, you have to do what we call scrubbing of a property. You need to know whether or not that property actually fits into the zoning. Right. So in Boston, it's 500 feet from a school and half a mile from from another cannabis shop, right? So that becomes somewhat problematic. In the city of Boston, there's 126 public schools. That's not including charter or parochial schools or private schools. So it gets kind of tight in that space. So one of the things that you have to do is to figure out which buildings are actually even in play. So the interesting piece is in Somerville, what they did is they greenlit all of the buildings that were actually in play. So that meant you could go and speak to the owners of those buildings. In addition, we also need to know if the person has a mortgage, then most times they won't be willing to lease to you. And possibly the only situation that you can be in with them is purchasing it, because in the stack of papers that you sign when you sign a mortgage, there's a page in there that says you won't break federal law, right? So that also limits the number of people. So then you are only dealing with landlords who own the property straight out, unless you're willing to purchase a property. And Jimmy took back his checkbook last week, so I'm not able to write any more checks on Jimmy's checkbook.
So back in the day when I was somebody and people used to ask me for my autograph, I used to say, "Why would you want it? It's not even worth anything on a check." Okay, so what the hell do you need my checkbook for? Which I think is pretty funny. Anyway, can we talk about the city of Cambridge?
Let's talk about the city of Cambridge.
Because we are friendly with the Revolutionary Clinics group. They sponsor my In the Weeds podcast. They offered a settlement with the city of Cambridge for, I believe it was a $5 million fund to help the social equity applicants. That was turned down.
Yeah.
And now the city is trying to. Can you explain to me what goes through the minds of these city councilors?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
I think the objective of what folks were trying to do there was well-meaning. But I think
so is the law, by the way.
No, I got you. So I think the piece there is that so what people should know in Cambridge, I believe about a week ago, the Cambridge City Council came to the conclusion that they are only going to let equity candidates open for recreational use for the first 2 years. So and there was a amendment made by Denise Simmons, who's a really good friend of mine. And I think it was a really smart piece. And by the way, she was able to push Revolutionary Clinics as well as others to get $5-6 million on the table and understand what the money was going to be used for. And this is typically doesn't happen in business, right? That money is put into a fund so people who are going to compete against these other folks are able to receive funds and understand they were going to give 5 to 6 grants. I'm going to say that one more time. Grants, not loans.
Not loans.
Right.
To equity candidates in order for them to be able to open. I personally believe that, and I testified on this topic, I believe that was the right way to go. Not only because, hey, Revolutionary Clinics has been open. They are, good folks. But they make some dough, right? Mm-hmm. The issue here is that the biggest gap here is the money to be able to open. Right. And so the thing is, access without economics means that we don't get over the threshold. So that's a critical component. And I think when it comes to this issue, there's some pragmatism that has to actually be employed here. So I agree with the sentiment that people who were most disproportionately affected by the war on drugs should be first in line. I give props to that. But when it comes down to it, even if you're first in line, if you don't have the finances to be able to operationalize, it could be another 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years for you to get the finances to actually be able to open. So again, as someone who's written legislation, it's very unlikely that your legislation goes untouched, right? And so I think the amendment that was put forth by Denise Simmons was the best way to go. That's not what happened in Cambridge. So what you have is now you have RMDs. So these are the medical operators who have been blocked out for 2 years. There has been talk of them actually going to the courts in this space, using the Equal Protection Act to plead their case. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but I think having the financial resources, to me, is the thing that stands out the most in order for these equity applicants to be able to not be burdened. And the other great piece is they weren't going to take equity in their company. Right. So if you get $1 million, you can open and you own 100% of your company. That is a critical component to actually being able to build wealth and be able to pass it on to you and your family.
And when I interviewed Steve Hoffman, we talked about this, and he wanted to see that come from the private sector. And here it is. Yeah, right? It was there, and it still isn't getting done.
Yeah, because Ron opened the checkbook up. So, hey, Ron put the credit card down. Yep. No, but so I personally think what I saw there was a willingness for some of the larger corporations that have had a head start in terms of opening, being willing to actually come out of pocket. And as I noted before, a budget is a value statement. And $5 or $6 million is a substantial amount of money. And by the way, $1 million. By the way, if you have $1 million, you probably can raise another 500, 600, 750, or another $1 million. Because this weird thing happens when you have money. People want to give you money. It's a weird thing.
I wouldn't know about that actually.
Jimmy, what's that like, Jimmy?
I still got a couple of more of those checks, my brother. So so that's my take on Cambridge. It was an interesting flow. I want to give props to City Councilor Denise Simmons for the work that she did, and I'm not pleased that she was maligned in the way that she was maligned, because I believe that she was standing up for the greater good of the city of Cambridge.
I'm going to call an audible. Okay, Tito, can you hang out for the rest of the show?
Yes, sir. I asked for a pound. I'm sorry, an ounce earlier. Okay, well,
you're still waiting for your ounce.
This is cable TV. We don't have pounds.
No,
we have an ounce.
I'm teasing. But no, I can definitely hang out. I'm really having a good time.
Terrific. Curt, you're okay with that too?
I couldn't kick him off, no.
No, I can't. And Bruce Linton is going to join us on the phone.
Awesome.
All right, and that's Curt's friend.
We'll see.
I was going to say, I'm putting him on the spot again. It's called either it's a horse or a weed strain. Can I get your name first?
Jordan. Faisal.
All right. So here you go, guys. Is it a horse named Main Attraction or a strain named Main Attraction? I feel like playing the Jeopardy music. Ding, ding, ding.
I feel like it's a strain. I'm going to say it's a horse.
The horse is the winner. All right. Very good. Very good. All right. So here we go. We're going to play a little game. Is it a strain or is it a horse name? All right. All right. It's okay. Orangutan. A horse or a strain?
That's a horse.
That's a strain. You're 0 for 1. You're doing great. All right. It's an adult show. It's okay. That's all right. Purple Majesty, a horse or a strain name?
That's a horse.
That's a horse. Correctamundo. Well done. 1 for 2. I got one. Is it Lucky Strike, a horse or a strain name?
That is a horse. I'm going to say it's a horse as well.
Okay, you guys got the horse down. Good job. You know that.
I know that one.
You know that horse. Descended from Whirlaway or something? Or secretary?
I think it won me some money back in the day.
Okay, fair enough. All right. All right. So, Main Attraction, horse name or strain? You can phone a friend, but don't look at him.
He was helping me out. I'm going to go strain on that one.
Is she right or wrong? She's wrong. It's a horse.
That was my first call.
First, always go with your instinct. That was a little fun we had down at New England Cannabis Convention in Portland, Maine. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Weed Talk Live. I'm Jimmy Young in the co-host chair.
I am Curt from Cannabis.net in the other chair.
And we also still have Tito Jackson with us.
Hanging out.
From Verdant Medical and former Boston City Councilor. And he was so entertaining, there was just no way I was going to ask him to leave. And I appreciate you hanging out with us, Tito.
I appreciate being here.
And Curt, I appreciate the fact that you do have a relationship with this guy, Bruce Linton, who was so kind to sit down with me. And he also kept a straight face when I put on my Bob Marley.
Put it on again.
I got it again.
He's putting on the Rastas, Bruce. He's putting on the Rastas.
But I do believe that Bruce is on the phone with us. So, Curt, you can take it away as I go into my Rasta mode here.
Bruce, are you there? Can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. I'm just being quiet because I'm afraid.
Yeah, it's a rowdy show tonight, I got to tell you. So I have to lead off right now. You left Canopy Growth, as you said. No, I was fired. The entire cannabis stock market crashed. Did you cause that?
Well, I didn't fire myself, so I don't think so.
but it was your leaving Canopy Growth. It seems to have sent the entire industry into a lack of confidence.
Well, but let's remember, who owns the stocks? Retail investors. Retail investors want to have confidence. They want to make sure, like, the headlines have some positive stuff. So, like, even today, when I saw a lot of the Canadian stocks go up, and stocks generally in the sector, why? Media was all over the fact it's the first anniversary of Canada regulating this, and there's something brighter coming in the new year. And retail said, hey, that I forgot about that. I want to buy some stock again. They don't like when headlines say, person who we know fired, or companies that are supposed to be following rules cheat. That makes them sell stock.
Mm-hmm. Which has happened in Canada. Now, I asked you in Jamaica on a viral video that millions have seen, would you still want to be the Canopy Growth CEO? And you had kind of said yes. It was a moment in time with great people, with great energy. If Mr. Sands at Constellation called you up or left a message with Olivia and said, Bruce, I made a terrible mistake, please have him call me, without knowing anything about remuneration or what it's about, would you call him back and listen?
Great question.
Oh, for sure. This is something where for 6 years you place every thought and energy and as much focus as you can. These are not things where you just, not a post-it note experience. This is a biography of what you did with your life for 6 years.
And we have some streamers and some listeners. Just give everybody, I think it's 4 projects that you've officially announced, maybe 5 now. Give us a quick rundown of the 5 things now that you're involved with post-Canopy.
Yeah, so it's getting stretched out a little bit more geographically and sort of topically. So start the furthest away. Cannabis 4.0, I think, is when cannabis becomes a more curative agent rather than a sort of management agent. And so I'm in the midst of setting up a venture capital pool based from a structural perspective in Luxembourg, operated out of Paris, with a bunch of folks that are, from ag, chemical, PhD researcher types. So that'll have targets 100 million euros, and it's going to look at really sort of advanced IP-driven stuff. And then when you come down a layer from there, the Better Choice dog food company sounds kind of like dog food, but it really is. It's high-end to people who care most about their animals. We have a good revenue model there already. And what we're doing is bringing in research so we can actually give dosage-driven, really results-oriented care products for people who care about their dogs. And then we'll extend to other mammals with 4 legs. You move a little bit sideways from there and you get into what's called Mind Med. And it's essentially, how do we take the potential of things under prohibition that have been called hallucinogenics, put them into clinical trials as necessary, amend the molecule set so they can become FDA-regulated, society-benefiting clinical products, not party products. And so that's a pretty big topic. And as you get a little kind of more near-term, in Michigan, they're going to transition from single-purpose to two-purpose bait in 2020. And so I'm involved quite actively with a thing called Gage. Gage also looks after cookies for the state. I have a brand house called Slang, and it's a good investment because I think, you'll pick them up across all U.S. states that are active. They do really well in the tough states, so they're strong in places like Oregon and Colorado. And then the final one is DNA Genetics, which is one of the original sort of breeder guys that moved to do that work over in the Netherlands and have come back to California, and I think they're ramping nicely now.
Bruce, this is Jimmy Young. First of all, thank you so much for joining us and also sitting down with me when we were down in Jamaica. That was it was very, very enjoyable, and I can't believe you kept a straight face when I put on my little hat, and just in your honor, I put it back on for the show. I don't know if you heard the news out of Massachusetts today, but Curaleaf received its final approval from Massachusetts, the Cannabis Commission, to open their first recreational marijuana store in the state. And I want to ask you about, as you look forward into your crystal ball, as the cannabis industry expands, not just out of the state, but internationally. You've got 3 products. You've got a hemp product, you've got CBD, and you've got our favorite MJ product, let's just say. Of those three, is the hemp and CBD market going to be 3, 4, 5 times bigger than the MJ market? What's your read on that?
I think the way people are tackling it now, it isn't. But I think if they start thinking about, like, how do I get whole plant value? You know, how do I actually get into the business that's not just CBD, but CBD is one of 3 or 4 products? The disruptive nature of the plant in terms of how it could disrupt cotton, how it could become part of automotive production, how it can become, you know, a very actively available nutrient. All these things, I think, could make hemp a gigantic crop, especially if you start saying, like, well, can we feed the protein hemp seed to drive dairy milk production? Would that be a thing we could do? Because that could be quite disruptive. But I'm not hearing enough of that conversation. I'm hearing everybody should have like 10,000 milligrams of CBD a day because that's what we're going to produce. And I don't think that's a great plan. As far as the MJ part, I think it's way bigger than people expect, but we got to start turning it into, I'll call it cohorts of care. So if you said, well, what would Japan adopt? Japan has a lot of geriatric people and they care quite a bit about them. If you actually started to have evidence-based indications that you have less diminished cognitive function if you had a combination of cannabinoid products that actually help people be old elegantly, I think that's an enormous market that is so underserved and underrepresented in the numbers people calculate. And it might be the basis upon a place like Japan adopting cannabis. So really, at the end of the day, I think it's more about the imagination of the people curating the products than it is the specific plants they originate from.
Bruce, I'd be remiss without mentioning it's the 1-year anniversary, as you mentioned earlier, with the stocks going up. Looking back 1 year now, not counting you leaving Canopy, what did you get right in the last 12 months, and what did Canada get right, and what did they get wrong, looking back?
So I think what they got right was to keep it simple out of the gate, essentially extend basically the medical products into the recreational market. Think of that like driving a car in the first year in first gear. And now what's happening is the second year, they're going to make a little bit more and quite diverse products, so it's going to go a little faster. But they're already going to have laid down all the stores, or many of the stores. There's more coming. They're going to have laid down the tax structures. They're going to lay down, you know, roadside enforcement and things like that. So I think they got that right. What they probably didn't get right was they could have been more bold on packaging. They could have been more enforcement in terms of getting the provinces or the states to get the stores up and running so there's a more uniform platform. But really, in the first year, any wrinkle they came to, they ironed out pretty quickly. And so, to me, it feels like it's time to shift to second gear. But at no point in time during the first year did anybody contemplate that they should, you know, take it out of gear and stop.
Gotcha. We had a group, the Vote Pot guys, on earlier from D.C., and you had done an interview with Kevin at Acreage when your deal was announced with them. You were kind of on the 18-month to 24-month. You thought the federal law would change. That's why the Canopy Acreage deal was kind of announced. Where are you at that now in the U.S.? What's your gut feeling, or what do you think? Where are you putting your chip on U.S. federal legalization?
Well, so the key is to remember that deal doesn't rely on federal legalization. It's federally permissible, which I think, depending on how they would do states' rights, would be sufficient. And so I think states' rights as an enactment of it's kind of a non-decision that gives you a waiver as a federal politician. We now agree with whatever you agree with. That, I think, is still going to be part of 2020.
And I absolutely agree. As a former elected official and someone who voted on how much the taxes were going to be, on a states' rights level, most states are actually going to want to be able to tax it at the wholesale level, the processing level, as well as the retail level. Bruce, this is Tito Jackson, and I have followed you. I'm a new CEO. I was a former Boston City Councilor and also ran for mayor, and I did that without being under the influence of anything. But I guess my question would be for a small guy who's starting out, what's your advice to a new CEO who is seeking to break into this industry and to scale their company?
Well, your job is to be in charge, which doesn't mean your job is to listen to everybody and do what they ask you to do. It doesn't matter if it's the board or investors, because if they knew what they wanted done, they would be the CEO. So I don't know how old you are, but there's a benefit of getting older. At some point in time, you spend quite a bit of time listening and more time listening to yourself. So it's better to get fired for having implemented a plan that failed that was yours than to get fired for implementing a plan that wasn't yours.
Well, you speak from experience, so that's true.
Yeah, but it's at the end of the day, what you want to be able to do is reflect upon what you implemented and sleep at night knowing that you actually thought it through and it was your idea. And I'm not saying you're pig-headed, but you have to listen and then implement. I would say what I learned through a few cycles of starting businesses and being CEO is I probably spent 15 years taking a lot of inputs and thinking about how should I incorporate those versus do I want to. And the effect is sometimes if you spend too much time incorporating other people's idea, what you create is the Australian beauty called the platypus. Doesn't look like anything you comprehend. So get fired for doing your own plan.
That's a great piece of advice.
The phone lines are lit up with platypus supporters.
That's a great piece of advice. Bruce, is a CEO more like a coach on a sports team where he's trying to put his staff in positions to succeed and almost be self-aware of their own weaknesses and stay out of the way?
Yeah, well, I guess it depends on the person. So I think I would distinguish more between there's a material difference between leadership and management. And what you have to determine is what are you good at? Because leadership and management aren't necessarily similar. I'm not particularly great at management, but I think I'm pretty good at leadership. And so you need to create an organization that reflects what you are and what you aren't. And then be quite comfortable. People always say hire people better than you. Well, I think that's kind of a weird thing to say. I would hire people who are better at things than I am. But if they're better at the core function I do than me, then I should fire myself and get out of the way.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Your reputation precedes you, Bruce. I could listen to you for hours and hours and hours, and I so appreciate the fact that you take time to hang out with Curt Dalton, despite his ability to book guests, and then they disappear, and then they come back, and then they blow us all away. So again, thank you so much,
Bruce. Was it awkward?
Well, and Curt, Curt, I did wear my new shirt to the gym on Saturday. I apologize. I apologize for no picture.
I have the shirt on right now on camera, buddy.
I do have people thinking I'm pushing the boundaries on good taste as far as cannabis shirts go now.
Oh, no, I've seen that tweed one. Don't worry, you're safe.
I need to get him a Tito shirt. Right. And also I needed one of those in XXL because I know Bruce's is not a XXL like mine.
No,
that's right. And Bruce, I know you like the Legal Seafood shirt too, and I've already put in a request as a gift.
I love that.
All right,
that was a classic.
It's coming your way in the mail. Just don't put me on deadline or anything, but we'll take care of that for you too. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks so much, Bruce.
Have a good night. Bye.
Wow, I tell you what, Curt,
awesome,
you are 100% right. He's the real deal.
Brilliant. There's a funny story that I think I've told at one of the shows where we talked about doing a podcast, and I said, well, I'd have to call my solo one third smartest guy in the room because I thought I was pretty smart till I met someone like Bruce Linton, and that I mean, you just listen. You go, I don't know. This is ridiculous how smart he is.
No, so and for me, that's awesome to be able to actually have direct contact with someone who has run a multi-billion-dollar company and is also really at the forefront of the industry. And actually, when you listen to all of the things that he's touching in this space, it really makes you think about how vast the cannabis industry as a whole is. Some of the stuff he's talking about is ancillary products, but a lot of the things around how do we actually do the science part of this, which I come from. I did pharmaceutical sales. I worked for Johnson & Johnson, worked for Eli Lilly. And okay.
Big pharma guy, he's coming out.
I do have to let y'all know that. I won't tell y'all what products.
Big pharma to cannabis king.
Yes. But this issue of dosing.
Yeah.
Is a really huge issue in our space, right?
And
so the other component is how do we use some of the technologies, because we understand when you're the technology connected to quote unquote OxyContin, right? OxyContin is actually the same thing as Percocet, but what they're actually selling there is the content, which is the continuous release system. Right, which is actually sadly what got a lot of folks hooked because there's what they refer to as a dose dump. In the first 45 minutes, you get 40% of the dose because the product was originally set up for people to come out of a hospital. So we need to know that context. But the question is transdermal patches. Potentially, obviously the tinctures, but how do we get this issue of dosing right? And I think there's a lot that we can think of in this space.
Dr. Uma calls that titration, right? And I give her credit for that because I've learned quite a bit from not just her, but from other people like yourself, Tito, from Bruce Linton. I mean, I've gotten such an education over the first 18, 20 months of this. I've learned quite a bit from you two.
I learned from Curt.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my dude.
Absolutely.
There's
another guy that we've talked about briefly here that we learned a little bit about, and it has to do with CBD and the company CBD Medic. And the CEO is Perry Antleman. And I got a chance to sit down with him in Jamaica, and I learned something about Rob Gronkowski, who is endorser. So we'd like to take a look at that now on the show.
Okay. Will he come back this year? There was all sorts of rumors just because he retired. He wants to get his body healed. That was the whole point of the retirement announcement in the offseason. We all get this if you follow the Patriots. Everybody wants to know, is he going to come back? What's your feeling, Perry?
Okay, so I'm going to quote Rob, okay? So I'm not going to put any words in my own. Okay, so first of all, and he's even mentioned, wait till week 14, right? He's been saying that. Right. And then even actually we were traveling around Israel last week. And he was saying, I'm feeling
Rob Gronkowski in the Promised Land. You got to hang with him in the Promised Land, right?
6 amazing, incredible days. And we'll have footage coming out with that soon. It was amazing. Trip of a lifetime. It was really, really, really incredible.
So is he coming back? What's the deal?
Okay, so when he was even joking around, he's saying, this is working so good. Maybe it's now week 8. He was like moving it up. Look, first of all, let's talk about legalities here, okay? He is officially banned from coming back to the NFL because he's endorsing and he's working with a CBD company.
Oh, see, that's an interesting story. I don't think I've heard that. Very good. I love getting a little exclusive stuff.
Yes. Okay. So if you endorse a company that's into alcohol, tobacco, or now CBD, even though CBD isn't written, by the way, in the rule book of the NFL, it's cannabis, okay, it's marijuana. But because that still is a component and it's not fully everybody understand.
Well, 10 years ago when they wrote that, they didn't have as much knowledge as they have now.
No question. And that's why this is going to be reviewed, and most likely this will be passed. And again, they're all about helping the health and pain.
Did you just break news? Is this going to be on the news tomorrow?
The athletes.
So was it news breaking? No, because he had already admitted on radio earlier in Boston this week that he was not coming back. But now you have an idea of why he can't or doesn't want or doesn't want to deal with it.
I didn't hear that when they said he hasn't filed his retirement papers. I didn't hear anything about
yes,
the CBD.
Yes, they had. That was definitely
for the game prep. That's right. Curt and Jimmy, that's ridiculous.
Oh, of course it is.
That you have a sport that has issues like CTE. I played football. It rained today. My right knee and my left shoulder hurts, right? So you have all of these things.
CBD medic.
No, understand. No. I do need to go and get some CBD medic because I actually, they gave me some little sample packets. That stuff works.
No, it's good.
I know it does. It does. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It is amazing. But I'm also getting the old wrap-up, so I want to thank my producer, Dan French. I want to thank
my man,
Zoto,
Dan.
Tito Jackson for hanging out with us. Yep. And, of course, Curt Dalton from Cannabis.net.
Curt Boogie and Jimmy.
So for my entire executive committee and everybody here at Pro Cannabis Media, thanks for watching and listening.
We are Pro Cannabis Media.